Well, hello and welcome back. It's Monday, which means it's Pathfinder Day again. And after a long weekend of being without power, it feels really nice to have power, to be warm and cozy, and I hope that you didn't lose power wherever you are and whatever you're doing. Hey, look at that. Much better audio. So today we are going to be talking Pathfinder 2nd Edition, as usual, because it's Monday, it's Pathfinder Day, and I'm going to be talking about building encounters. Now, this particular topic is one that I'm doing because when I started looking at the encounter stuff in the core rulebook, I actually found it confusing. Now, it is simple, it is straightforward, but somehow I was missing like the bridge to put it all together, and so I have decided to create a series of slides and a process to walk through them so that if you have confusion the way I did, well, hopefully this will make it a lot easier to understand and actually use, because encounter building in Pathfinder 2nd Edition is extremely simple and straightforward. And really, once you know how to do it, it's really, really lovely. And I'm excited to build my own encounters now that I actually know how to do it. So one thing I gotta do first is I forgot to turn on Do Not Disturb. So let's turn that on so you won't be hearing any jingles of text messages coming through in the background there. I've got my tea, little cardamom tea today, and man, this asymmetrical haircut really looks super odd with the headphones. Like, just stay back there. Hey, Kayim, welcome back. It's so nice to see friendly faces when I come on. And I'm very happy to see you here. I look forward to hearing you chiming in if I get any of this wrong, and of course sharing your thoughts and ideas on encounter building, because, you know, that's one of the reasons I'm here, because I don't want to live in a vacuum, and I don't live in a vacuum, and none of us live in a vacuum. Anyway, all right, let's go ahead and jump in. I don't know. I don't really have anything to say to warm up except I'm so excited. I got like 7 new followers, and that's an exciting thing for me. It's always nice to have, like, to know that people are interested in what you're doing. Whatever that is, it's always a good feeling to be like, hey, people actually are interested in the same things I am. Because sometimes, you know, living our lives, wherever we are, we don't necessarily find those people in physical life. So finding them here online has been really fun and really exciting for me. Yeah, so I don't know. Like I said, I feel like I don't have anything super interesting to share today. So we're just gonna dive in. So as long as I can go find where I put the presentation. And hey, now I'm getting text messages on my watch. Apparently it didn't mute that. All right, let's transition on over. Yeah, no, Kayim. So Kayim says, I think that encounter building is pretty easy in 2nd edition, but that might be because I've memorized the rules. No, it really is. I don't know if I was trying to overcomplicate it, like expecting it to be more difficult, and so therefore I was like, I don't know. I think that it has to be done in a particular order, and it doesn't seem like a lot of information on the tables. Like, if you just look at them, they don't look like complicated tables. They're very simple and straightforward. But my brain was just having a really hard time processing that for whatever reason. So life goes on. All right. So yeah, let's build an encounter. Now, how do we build an encounter? First, I've decided to go ahead and build like a little flowchart to make this as simple and straightforward as possible. So the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to identify our party level. For this exercise, I've just decided to make it party level 3, although probably working with a party level 5 would be better for, a little example. But 3 is what I chose because that tends to be that starting level for a lot of, you've done the beginning stuff and now you're ready to actually like adventure into the world. So 3 seemed like a good place to start. So the first thing we have to do is, what is that party level? Once you have that, then we're going to look at how challenging of a threat, the threat level, do we want the encounter to be. So I'm gonna go over exactly what options there are to choose from, but that's gonna be our second step. From there, we're going to, of course, take note of how many party members we actually have. Maybe your party is big, maybe your party is small. Either way, it's important to note because it actually changes the math and changes how much of a budget you have to spend. From there, you do a little bit of math to make some adjustments based on your party size, and that gives you your budget. Once you have your budget, you're going to want to look at the types of roles that you want these creatures to have, and we've got another chart for that, which is also in the core rulebook. Nothing that I'm sharing today is anything that I've come up with or created, aside from just like laying this out in this particular way. Everything is, all the tables and everything are all in the core rulebook, so nothing surprising there. And then you get to spend your budget. Once you've figured out like what kind of creatures are going up in terms of their roles, like are we going up against a boss? Are we going up against a lackey? Like what kind of role does this creature fulfill in the world? Then we get to spend it on actually choosing creatures from the bestiaries. So with that in mind, let's just go ahead and start looking at some of our options and things we can do. So in terms of calculating your budget, this chart, although maybe not as prettily, is available in the core rulebook and looks just like this, without the numbers because I've added those. But basically, we're going to work through this table from left to right, just like we read, right? So pretty simple, pretty straightforward. We choose that threat level. How hard do we want this to be? We identify and make note of the XP budget that is given based on that threat level. And then we make our character adjustments based on our party size. So whether we have more players or fewer players than 4, it's always 4. Based on that, we make adjustments to give us our actual budget. From there, so I went ahead and dropped this back in there so that we can kind of walk back and forth. So we've looked and we've made note of what our budget could be. And then we can move forward to how many party members and making those character adjustments. And then this is the place where we decide the roles, and then that gives us how much each creature of a certain level is going to be worth. Now, we're going to go into this in more detail a little further along, but I wanted to give you this overview now to kind of start to ease your brain into what does this look like and how does it work. Now, I think one of the things that was tripping me up is this party level like -1, -2, -3, because I wasn't 100% sure that that's supposed to be read as -1. I know that seems really silly, but yeah, sometimes that sort of thing, very simple. You just have to make a very small assumption, very small step in that direction in order, but I wasn't 100% sure, so then I got a little frustrated. So XP, it represents both the cost to your budget and I believe the reward to the players, if I'm not mistaken. And the creature level is really going to be as simple as figuring out what kind of creature in that suggested role and then going to the left to find out what level it should be. And so that's sort of that table. Pretty simple. And so let's move into our actual example. Like I said, it really is simple and super straightforward. It's not going to take me long to go through this at all. It's a total of 10 slides, so the process is exceedingly simple. But the first thing we're going to do is choose that threat level. So for this example, as I detail this out, you'll see that I've highlighted things. So we're going to choose the moderate threat level for this example. So we're moving through this table left to right. So moderate, and I made a note of it up in the upper right hand corner. From there, we're going to note that base XP budget. In this case, it's 80. After that, we're going to need to make the adjustments for our party size. So depending on our party size, we're going to be looking at that character adjustment amount in that far right column. In this case, for each additional member, you'll be adding 20, and for each lesser party members, you'll be subtracting 20 at this level. And you'll notice that the character adjustment does change based on the threat level. All right, so I went ahead and detailed out in that upper right-hand corner, which is the adjustments for the party. So if you had a party of 3 and we're looking at that moderate level, that's a base XP of 80, minus, did I write 60? Oh no, minus 20 for a single party member. I was like, am I reading that wrong? No, okay, so the numbers are correct as long as I'm reading them correctly. So a party of 3 is one character short of a party of 4, so we're going to be subtracting 1 character adjustment amount, which is 20 in this case, taking our total experience points budgets to 60. And if we had a party of 5, that's 1 extra character, we would be adding 20, in that case, bringing the total to 100. Kaim is chiming in over here, or you can just ignore that table and throw Krampus at your party if they're making too many naughty jokes. Oh, absolutely. I mean, that's just GM fiat. You can throw whatever you want at your party at any time if you need to get the table in line, right? It's always my favorite when I'm watching other people GM and they're making notes or making rolls and everybody else at the table is like, uh-oh, what did we do? We've crossed a line. They're doing things. They all panic. It's kind of my favorite thing. So we've got our basic budget for that set up. Now I went ahead and changed the assumptions just for fun. And that is just eliminating the complexity of having a slightly smaller party. So for this chart, to detail out all those creature levels that I have on the left-hand side, I went ahead and set the party level at 3 and made it a party of 4, giving us just that basic 80 XP budget. So what does that mean? It means we have 80 XP to spend. And so we can look right down this chart and see how far that would go. So if we were selecting party level -4, so low threat lackeys, goodness, tongue twisters today. It's not really, but my tongue seems to think it is. And we have a budget of 80. That means we could have 8 low threat lackeys in order to spend that budget. Now, we obviously want to keep in mind our threat level a little bit, right? Because the challenge is already built in. So what do I mean by that? The challenge is built in from that previous table because we already said we wanted it to be moderate. So 80 experience points represents a moderate combat, moderate encounter. That means that 8 low threat lackeys, so party level -4, is a moderate challenge to the party. And that's that. That's it. It's super simple. Now, knowing how it, in terms of the game, it's a moderate encounter. But how does that present to your party? That might be a little bit different. So you might make different choices based on that suggested roll, or because you know what sort of foe that they should be facing, i.e., these are tower guards, so they are, maybe they're just a standard lackey. So anyway, in this case, I went ahead and wrote the actual creature level. So when you're looking in the bestiaries, you'll see that every creature has a level. Unlike in D&D 5th edition, there's no CR rating, which is your creature rating. It's pretty much the same thing, but it looks a little bit different, basically. So it's pretty simple and straightforward. Once you have your party level, then you kind of translate that left-hand side to the creature level. Meaning, if it's equal with the party level, the creature would be the same level as the party, in this case 3. If we were going to spend our 80 experience points at that matching level, that would mean we could have 2 creatures, and they would basically be standard creatures or low threat bosses, and that would give us that medium encounter because it's built right into the numbers. We don't have to think about it beyond that. Follow the numbers and you get basically what it says. It's a lot less like confusing and nebulous, perhaps, in 5th edition, because 5th edition is pretty much known for you do your best and you hope it doesn't kill your party, or you hope that it wasn't just like they just wipe it out in like 3 hits and you're like, okay, so what else are we gonna do today? Thought that was gonna take all night and now we're done. Right? So you want to avoid that. Pathfinder 2nd edition seems to have mostly headed off those problems by making the game extremely balanced, and one of the ways they do that is through the encounter building process. So that's really all you need to know in order to build an encounter. Now, what can you spend your XP on? You can spend it on more than just creatures. You can also spend it on hazards. And I think that that's a genius way to create a much more dynamic and engaging battlefield. Kaim is reminding us that creatures go up to level 25. Oh ho ho, with tree racers and terrorists being the only 25s. Oh my goodness. So yeah, if you have a level 20 party, and those are 25s, that is going to be your creature, what is that, party level plus 5. I mean, that's like maxing it out. I think it would be really interesting to see how that plays out. Although I did watch a little bit of a high-level Pathfinder game on Twitch last week, and unfortunately it is totally escaping me what I was watching and who was streaming. But it was interesting, the complexity of their turns, because they have so many different things that they can enact at that level as player characters. So I think it'll be a lot of fun to eventually get a campaign to that level, because you'll know all those things inside and out. Whereas if you're just to do a one-shot at that high level, it can get a little clunky because you're trying to remember all the things that you can do. But yeah, so building an encounter is really as simple as that, because once you've done that, you can just start looking through and deciding what types of creatures or foes fit what the idea of what you're trying to create. And then you just get to have a lot of fun just basically spending these experience points to create something interesting and the correct level of challenging for the group that you've got that you're working with. And I think that that's really nice. It's just so simple and straightforward. See, it really is simple and straightforward. I have no idea why reading the text and looking at the tables was such a complex thing for me. I avoided it for several weeks because I was just like, I don't even know. But yeah, it's really that simple. I like I said, it's a short and simple sort of thing to go over, but I felt like it sort of was making my head hurt, and I thought somebody else might be having the same problem. So why not take a little bit of time just to detail this out and go over it? Kaim chiming in. Also, creatures have elite +1 level and weak -1 level versions. Yeah, I think that's really important to note, is that you can tweak the creatures to fit not just like your encounter budget, but your encounter and what's going on with your players in general to make it a little more challenging or just a slight bit easier. I think that's really nice that that's built in there, and it has a mechanical automatic way to do that instead of just sort of on the fly going, well, I guess I'll give it a few more hit points, or maybe I will, add a resistance or get rid of a resistance, and you're just sort of guessing at how that might affect combat and hope that it achieves the result that you're looking for. This is a lot more straightforward because it's already figured out for you. You don't have to figure it out. Like, basically, once you figure out these things, like for your party, it's kind of done for a while, like the whole time they're at that level, that party size, like, how many points you have to spend for every encounter. It doesn't change. It's not a super flexible, it's flexible in terms of what kind of creatures you can choose, but the way you do it is just the same template over and over and over again. And I think that's genius, because I could actually sit down and make a ton of encounters in an hour and then just slot them in as needed. Like, it's not going to be nearly as much prep work. It's not going to be like, oh gosh, I got to come up with another encounter and that's going to take me hours. It's like, no, I know what the budget is. I just come in here and decide, how many, what's that threat level that I want for them? How many creatures at what experience points? And of course, obviously we can mix and match. We can have, if we're working with 80 experience points, we can have a 30, a 20, and a 10. Oh, I'm sorry, it'd be two 20s, a 30, two 20s, and a 10, so there can be a varied mix of creatures or foes. And, so you can create a lot of interesting scenarios that way. And I love that hazards have experience points because you can mix them in. And one of the discussions that I recently saw was the idea of using hazards in a way that is similar to D&D's layer actions. And I thought that was really a fascinating take on it. They even went so far as to attach one of the hazards to the creature that was being fought so it could be temporarily disabled. Anyway, it was really interesting, and I look forward to exploring that concept, but I really do like the idea of building hazards in because I think it creates a more dynamic atmosphere, and there's more to deal with than just, a creature or a handful of creatures. There's something else going on, giving the party, forcing them to make important choices about what to focus on and who should focus on what. And I think that just really starts to make the game come alive in a lot of ways because there's more pressure. But the nice thing is it's still the same level of threat. So it might feel a lot more engaging and it might feel like there's a lot more pressure because you're splitting your focus to try to take care of these things. But overall, it's actually the same encounter as if it was just a simple, straightforward, like, let's just say we wanted to have just a single bad guy, right? So 80 experience points, that's a moderate or severe threat boss in this particular case. Which would be the equivalent of party level +2. So a creature of level 5 in this scenario. And so I think that's really interesting because there's a lot of room to play creatively within that framework, which is one of the things that I keep repeatedly finding inside of Pathfinder is that there is a lot of support and a lot of framework and just so many things are thought out for you that it allows you to have a lot more creative freedom to actually spend your creative experience points, so to speak, on things that are more meaningful to the game and that are a lot more fun. And it actually makes the GM load a lot lighter, which is like a really thrilling feeling because it's like, oh, I have enough energy to actually do more than just come up with the basics for the game. So I think that it's really, really cool. I'm really, the deeper I get into Pathfinder, the more and more I like it. It is a little more gamey in a lot of ways, but I find that to be actually really helpful and allows I'm saying that word way too much today. Oh boy, brain. Come on, brain. And now I have completely lost my thought. Typical me. Must be time for some tea while I wait for my brain to reboot. Oh yeah, so it is more gamey, but I think that allows you more freedom to be creative, both as a player and a GM. So I'm kind of loving it. Loving it a lot. It feels, I don't know, calm. It feels like a lot less stress. And it's like, well, it's a game. It shouldn't be stressful to begin with. But, you want to make sure everybody has a good time. So, of course, there's a little bit of stress involved there. And this just takes a lot of that out, making everything so simple and straightforward. And I just realized, here I am. Just chatting away, making you stare at that budget table forever and ever and ever for no good reason, because we're pretty much done with that. Like I said, encounter building is extremely simple and straightforward. I am a newbie GM in Pathfinder, and I actually understand how to do it. That's how easy it is. And I'm also not a math savant by any stretch. I'm not even... Let's put it to you this way. When my sister, who is 8 years younger than me, when she was doing algebra as homework, I actually was having fun helping her, and my husband was like, "Whoa, are you okay? What's wrong with you?" Because really pretty much up to that point, I'd always hated math.